My name is Laura, and I was at the Mountain View unit in Gatesville, Texas, and I spent about 3.5 years there. I ended up in prison because I became addicted to pain medicine. I'd had many kidney surgeries and just kept getting them and never went off of them. So then I began trying to get them, and I was writing checks. So I got charged with forgery. So I was sent to prison for forgery. What I thought about God before I went to prison, I've always believed in God and loved God, but when I was in my addiction, I did nothing about it. I didn't talk to him, and I have to be honest, the first 3 or 4 months that I was locked up, I wouldn't reach out to him for help because I felt hypocritical, because I had loved him as I was growing up and in my married life, but I didn't have anything to do with him while I was in my addiction. And I would sit there and say to myself, why am I going to reach out to God now while I'm in trouble? I didn't want to reach out to him when I wasn't in trouble, and I just thought that was hypocritical. And it just took somebody, I finally went to church, and a lady saying that he doesn't care when you reach out to him. He just wants you to come to him. Matter of fact, it was the song, I've loved you this much and I'm waiting on you. And then she talked about it, and that he didn't care. He didn't care that I didn't reach out to him and that I was now reaching out to him because I was in trouble. He just wanted me, and he wanted to be a part of my life, and he wanted us to have a good relationship. And once I got over that, then my relationship became so strong, and I've just had so much peace, and I just saw God's love everywhere. I mean, I'm one of these people now that I can see a flower growing through cement and just see God. I mean, that's just God. I love driving down the road when the leaves are 4 or 5 different colors. To me, that is God. A beautiful sunset, that is God. A rainbow is God. That's where that's where I see God all the time, every day, is just like that. Just see him everywhere, every day. I would like to start out by saying what was really good in prison. Really good was I couldn't be with my family, but I had a church family, and they made me feel loved and that somebody cared about me and that I could do better. And then I had the faith-based dorm that stood out for me. It was just overwhelming with God's love and such peace. It brought me such peace that carried on through the rest of my time. Kairos. I was allowed to be part of a Kairos. The thing I can tell you about prison is that it helped me make the person I am today. Because if I didn't go through some of those trials, then I would have never got where I am today. And that's what stood out for me, is because I could be loved somewhere that I couldn't be with my family. The advice that I would give people that had been using drugs before they were locked up would be to really understand what was going to trigger them going back into drug use. And there's so many things that could trigger you. It can be old places that you used to go, people you used to know, hangouts you used to be at, and you need to be aware of those and stay away from them. If it was emotional, then you need to work on how I can handle feeling this way without trying to drown it out with some substance. People don't understand this, but it can be as simple as a smell. It can be as simple as some song playing on the radio that might trigger something when you used. But that is so individual. That's what I want to tell them, that no matter, I can list hundreds and hundreds, but you have to figure out yours yourself, because for everybody it's different. So that is definitely big advice. And to know where your resources are if you do start using. If you start using, know who to go to. Know where your support groups are. Know where AA, NA, Celebrate Recovery are. Know where you can get some help. There's state-funded facilities out there. I did not realize that there were places that people with no insurance and no money could go for help, but there are state funded. I work for a company. I'm a chemical dependency counselor, and we are state funded. We take no insurance and we take no money. And you just come in and you get evaluated, and then you get put on a bed list. And every city has one. A good place to start is to call your MHMR, because they will know where it's called an OSAR is, to go and get you a place to go. If I was looking to, when I'm talking to clients about staying sober, the main part is support. That's the main thing. I tell my clients, because addiction is a disease, and if I had diabetes, I could take a pill. Well, we don't have diabetes. We have the disease of addiction. So therefore, the only known medicine, or I tell them, the only pill you can take is this, and it's a group. And so if whether you're in treatment, in outpatient treatment with a counselor, or if you're not in treatment, then that means AA, NA, Celebrate Recovery, church, youth groups, anything you can get involved in. And that's another thing that's personal. You have to decide what works for you, because what works for me is not going to work for somebody else. So they have to figure out which group they like, but talking, and you have to be honest. You think that you're the only person that's been through this. You think you're the only person that's ever done anything that, and it's just an overwhelming when you actually have the nerve to stand up and say, this is what I did. And then you have 4 other people in that group say, you know what, I did that too. And then all of a sudden in your head you're going, wow, I'm not that person I thought I was. Somebody else has been through this too. And it's an overwhelming, and it really helps in your sobriety to feel like you're not alone. That is a very big part of it. I'm not alone. And so that's what your groups are about. Understanding I'm not alone in this. Somebody's right here with me. What I think is important about recovery is what I touched on about not being alone. You're not alone, and that this is something that you're going to need to work on for the rest of your life, that you're not alone, that you can and if you have a failure, get up and try again, because, when you're in recovery, it's tough. It's tough. You've led that way of life for a long time, and so now you've just got to figure out new ways to go and new ways to do things and new people to hang out with and new places to live. And recovery is just about one day at a time. I tell some people, okay, if one day at a time is too overwhelming, take a minute at a time. And then when you get a little stronger, bump it up to 5 minutes. And then when 5 minutes you're strong enough, bump it up to 15. But don't get overwhelmed because you don't think you can make it 24 hours without using. Just slow down and say, okay, for the next 5 minutes, I'm not going to use. And it's just really important. It's really important to search yourself, know yourself. What were my triggers? What led me back to drugs? What do I need to stay away from? But that's the important thing about recovery. Am I willing to work on myself to figure out what leads me back to drugs? Or am I not willing? Because I need everybody to know there is a big difference in being sober and being in recovery. I can go to a county jail and give you 100 people that are sober, but that does not mean they're in recovery. They're just counting their days down till they can get out and use again. There's a big difference, and I would like them to understand that. Sober is not recovery. Recovery is when you're working your program. You're working every day. You say, what can I do tomorrow that I didn't do today that's a little bit better? What can I do the next day that'll be even a little bit better than that? Where did I go wrong today? Was I ugly to somebody? Did I think about using today? What can I do? And that's the difference between being sober and being in recovery. What I do to continue my relationship with God, One thing is, I started to Celebrate Recovery in my church. I try to make it every Saturday, but sometimes I have to work and can't make it. But also, the place I work, I'm allowed to bring the Lord into where I work. I can minister to the girls, I can pray with the girls or the gentlemen too, but I'm allowed to do that. But I also, just my personal relationship, just at home at night, reading the Bible, because I want to talk about just the peace. I had some struggles coming out. I did. But I also had such peace. And I acquired that peace while I was locked up. And I didn't want to lose that peace because, when I first got locked up, I didn't think I could breathe or make it through another day because I was locked up. But by the grace of God, He came in and gave me peace, and He gave me all of these loving people in my pathway. And I was able to endure that because of all that love, and I didn't want that feeling to ever go away. So I've made a big point to make sure that I keep my relationship, and He's just my friend. I think a lot of people worry about praying properly, what to say. I just talk to Him like He's sitting right next to me, and He knows, and what I do, what I don't do. I tell the girls all the time, just be honest. It's not like it. You understand? He doesn't know what's going on in your heart. So I don't know who you think you're hiding it from because He knows what's going on. So that's what I do. I don't ever want to lose the peace that I gained there, because that peace has helped me get my college education, helped me get my career. I have an apartment. That's the peace that I gained going through the faith-based dorm, and just all the loving people that reached out to me. Hi, I'm Laura, and I was in prison for 3.5 years, and I have been changed by God's grace.